Science Math Resource Center. And Susie Taylor, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Susie Taylor. I'm with the Science Math Resource Center. And Jeannie, I did hit record so we can share this with anybody who's not here. Hopefully that's okay with everybody.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and start digging in. We have some slides to present to you, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. And Susie might take over with some extra tips at the end. So let's go ahead and dig in. So this is our quick agenda. We're going to give a quick overview. I know some of you are returning coaches, but there are definitely several new coaches on the call. So we'll give you a brief overview of Science Olympiad. We're going to talk about the 2026 events, provide some logistics and program announcements that everybody will definitely benefit from, talk about how to register your team, and then, like we mentioned, we'll have some tips for coaches, and if the returning coaches want to head off at that time, we totally understand, but we want to make sure our new coaches get to hear all those ideas we have for you. So the Science Olympiad is the country's premier STEM competition. It's a standards-based STEM challenges that are both fun and rigorous. For us, our state tournament here in Montana is held at Montana State University for both middle and high school teams. And our event date this year is Thursday, February 19th, 2026. Woohoo! We're going to have 16 events that cover all of the areas of STEM. There are really different types of events, though. Some events are really all about building, and you might build something ahead of time or maybe build in the moment. Then there are events that are a little bit more like knowledge-based, where you study a bunch ahead of time, show up and answer a set of questions about what you learned. Then there's lab, where you might be doing a lab experiment in the moment here that you maybe practiced at home, at school ahead of time. And then a hybrid, which kind of mixes a little bit of all of that, because some of the events really truly do mix it all. Here at MSU, we have a couple of really special things to make our state tournament unique. The first is the night before the tournament, we have a Museum of the Rockies STEM night, where the museum invites just those of us at Science Olympiad to come, enjoy, get to see the museum, but also hear from local STEM related organizations, which is really exciting. We also have, on the day of the tournament, MSU Talks and Tours, where different either labs here at MSU or different areas of MSU provide a little talk or give a tour of their area, which is an opportunity for students to get to see a little bit more of MSU besides just the competition rooms. We will also hopefully have a photo booth and some fun little things in the Strand Union building called the Sub, and maybe a MSU Student Club Fair, which is a new addition that we've added in the past couple of years, and more. So it's certainly, we try to make, since this is a state tournament, we try to make it exciting and give your students an opportunity to explore the Bozeman area as well as the campus itself. So they get a hint at what it's like to be here in case they choose here for their future. So just a heads up, if you have not seen it, we host very specific events that are pulled out from the national events. So you'll hear this like 3 different times in the presentation. We do not host all of the national events. So make sure you check our website. You'll also notice that all of these links will take you to the national site with like a little overview and more information about each event. So be sure to take a look at all of the events and make sure that your students are studying for the Montana events. We have had a couple of years where a new coach didn't quite realize that we don't run all the events, and so their poor students studied ahead of time for an event that we didn't run. So please, please, please make sure to check out these events. A quick note, we have 2 trial events this year. We've been running trial events for the past several years. And if you're a new coach and don't know what a trial event is, this is an event that is not yet ready to be a competitive event and to count towards the overall team score, but they think it might become one of those events. And so they're trialing it across the US in different states. And we actually will report on, if we host the event, how many teams competed, how it went. We give a little bit of feedback, and then that helps the national competition decide whether they want to move it from a trial into a regular event. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But just one quick reminder, thank you, Susie, for popping the website link into the chat to check out our website for our specific Montana events. So just a real quick overview here at the Montana Science Olympiad, we do have 2 divisions. Division B is grades 6 through 9, and then Division C is grades 9 through 12. You'll see there is technically an overlap, and that is because you can have a 9th grade student who competes down in the middle school or competes with the high school. They cannot do both though. So they do have to decide whether they're going to be in middle school. And there are very specific rules and conditions about that 9th grader moving down, which is all on the national website. There's a maximum of 15 students per team, and then you can have 2 alternates. What's really cool, and the reason we really like hosting the trial events, is that your 2 alternates can plan to compete in the trial event. So sometimes if we don't have the trial events, the alternates don't get a chance to compete, but those trial opportunities give them a chance to practice what it's like as an alternate. So schools can have both a varsity and a junior varsity team, but the team rosters are fixed. So you're either on the varsity team or you're on JV. You cannot go between the 2 teams. So a student can't compete in astronomy on the varsity team and meteorology on the JV team, right? And again, they can't be in Division B for some events and Division C. You have to be on just one team only, right? And please feel free to ask questions in the chat. I recognize that sometimes I talk really fast. I want to make sure we get through all the slides, but I have no problem answering questions along the way or having you all ask questions at the end when we have a slide for it. So feel free to stop me if you need to. Okay, Montana Science Olympiad. The way our events are set up, each student team member could compete in 1, 2, 3, or 4 events. We theoretically could even have them compete in 5 events this year because we will have 5 test blocks, but really most students will be competing in 2, 3 events, maybe 1 or maybe 4, which is probably a little less common. Most events are for 2 students, but there are a few like Code Busters and experimental design that have 3 students per team. Your team can only enter each event once, so you can't have 3 pairs of students building a tower or 3 different pairs of students taking the astronomy test. So the coach, the hard job as the coach, right, is figuring out which students should go to which event. Remember, this is our second reminder that Montana does not offer all of the 23 events that are listed in the National Rules Manual. So make sure that you check our website for the events that we're running here in Montana. The top team in each division, so 1 middle school and 1 high school team in varsity specifically, will go on to nationals. Great. These are some new events. So some of you who've been coaching for several years might recognize that we go through transitions at the national level where like every 2 or 3 years we rotate events out. So it's been a few years since we've had remote sensing. So just a couple of reminders on remote sensing. They do change the emphasis. So this year, the emphasis within remote sensing is on climate change. Students will need to learn all about the optics and the mechanics behind remote sensing. They're going to need to recognize pictures and aerial photographs. So make sure that they're looking at those fine details. One thing to mention, and I'm going to see if I can show this on the screen, when there is a change within rules, you'll see that the rules will be bolded. So if you see something that's bold, that means it's a change from prior years. So I'm going to try to find a section. I think I'll have to bring it up in another one because I don't see any bolding in remote sensing. Oh, which makes sense because we didn't have remote sensing last year. Water quality is the next one. We haven't had it in a few years. The emphasis on water quality is going to be on fresh water. So make sure that your students are following the rules manual to read up all on fresh water. There is something in water quality. I think the water quality actually does have some bolding in it. Let me see. Yeah, in water quality for Division C, check out the bold event, the bold information. I'm not going to make you read it off my screen, but just be sure to look, because anytime there's something bold, it's something Nationals really wants you to know. And in Division C, they specifically say, understand and apply the concept of indigenous knowledge or traditional ecological knowledge to given scenarios. So make sure that for all events, but particularly for the new events, you're really looking at those bold sections. Great. Circuit Lab is a fun one. It's a little bit hands-on and a little bit of study ahead of time. So they do study ahead of time, all the information about the physics and a little bit of chemistry about circuits, but they also need to know the hands-on. Oh, real quick, actually, let me go backwards, because with water quality, one thing to make sure students know, each team may bring one student-built salinometer or hydrometer for testing. There's a note in Circuit Lab as well. What is it in Circuit Lab that they have to bring, Susie? Do you remember? Oh,
They can bring their own multimeter.
yep, yep. So if you want to train your students on how to use their specific salinometer or their specific multimeter, which might make them feel a little bit more confident because they practiced with it, those two events are some of the ones that do allow you to bring in your own information or your own materials. Not all events do, and we'll talk about that in a second. Helicopter, that one's a fun one. It's a rubber band helicopter. We will probably be doing that one in Inspiration Hall, where it's a big wide open area. They'll use balsa wood. Anything else to highlight about helicopter?
I don't think so. Nope. They can make two
Perfect.
helicopters. They'll test them in a 10-minute period and basically see how long it can stay aloft.
Perfect.
And there's some other design parameters in there too. It can only weigh so much or be so big. But in general, they're building a helicopter and testing to see how long it flies.
Yep. For engineering CAD, this one is super exciting. If you have our returning coach, you will recognize that we are not offering Write It, Do It this year at Division C level. That's because they are not doing it nationally. So nationally, they have changed Write It, Do It at Division C to engineering CAD. So the software that they are using is Onshape. Students have to bring their own laptop. So be sure that they're charging it the night before, that they've got their own laptop, they know how to use Onshape. It's really exciting. They should know a little bit about Onshape ahead of time. And then what will happen is they'll get here, they'll be provided with some specifics, and they'll actually get to design something based on the parameters given by the event supervisor in the moment, which is really exciting. So that's another new one. Botany is a fun activity that's going to be a trial event. So remember, trial events don't go into the overall team score. We're going to have probably two times that the student, like two sign-up times for both Botany and Code Craze in the later sessions, so that hopefully all the students can participate. Botany, they're going to study all about plants and then show up the day of, and they'll take a test on all of that knowledge. I think, is there an emphasis? I don't think there's a particular emphasis, but it's definitely
Nope. It's
plants.
just general plant
Right?
knowledge.
Perfect. Cool. Code Craze is also an exciting new trial event. This one is being run in collaboration with Code High School. Or Code HS. Code HS, the students should probably practice a little bit ahead of time. I went to the training over the summer or last spring, and Code HS was hoping that they would have stuff out ahead of time. I haven't double checked to see if they've got it on the national website so that students could be practicing on their system ahead of time. They will have a competition module that gets created by the event supervisor, and they'll go through that module. The difference between Code Craze and like Code Busters, which has been an event for a while now, is a little bit more cipher based, and that's really fun. They get to like encrypt and decrypt stuff. Code HS and the Code Craze is a little bit more about programming. So that's kind of the distinction if you see that we have two coding activities this year. I'll pause here for a second and ask, are there any questions about these new events? Okay, I think no questions, so I'll move on. Thank you for putting the link to the rules manuals in, Susie. Great call. Okay, so here are a couple of coaching reminders. Make sure you know the state tournament includes both Division B and Division C, middle school, high school, right? We try to make sure that like things are separated, but your team needs to know whether they're on Division B or Division C, and they should double check every now and then. We'll have a middle school team accidentally take the high school test. So please try to remind them that they are a Division B or a Division C team. Oops, let me go back to that one real quick. One more time, we do not host all the national events, so make sure you're looking at our website. One event per team, so you can't have two sets of people doing an event. The one exception to that sometimes is with our trial events. We've allowed like two people to do ag sciences, and we will let you know that it's really important that you all register on the Olympiad software, because that's what tells us if the trial events are like filled up. So if they're not filled up, we can allow more, but if they're filled up, then we can't. So please, please, please make sure that for most events, it's only one event per team. JV and varsity, you must stay on the same team. You can't be on JV and on varsity. Make sure to double check the rules on materials. So in the event parameters part of the rules, just double, triple check as much as you can. We know students are human just like us, so they might miss something and accidentally bring a whole binder when they're only allowed a single page of notes. But it's just a bummer when the event supervisor has to say, I'm sorry, you can't have a full binder. You're only allowed to have one page. So make sure your students are double checking the rules manuals. There are rules clarifications both at the national level as well as here in Montana. The Montana rules updates are just on our website about the events, and the national page is linked on our website as well. If you haven't seen it, there is a popcorn fundraiser that the Nationals provides the opportunity to join. I think it's double good, so thank you for the link. There's the popcorn fundraiser, and then really we can't encourage you enough to take a look at the resources on the national page. The national page has, if you click, it's kind of hard to find because they have these 9 boxes in the front, but if you click on the menu button, that green menu on the top left, you'll see that there's a lot more resources that are available. Nationals typically hosts the webinars for students about some of the events. I don't know if they do all 23 events, but they have in the past hosted. I've seen Codebusters hosted. I've seen, let's see, I think last year we had an Anatomy Phys one too. So they will host webinars. It is national, so it's not going to be our event supervisor, but it's still really cool to hear more information about the event itself and like some tricks and tips from the national site. So great. How to register. So there are 2 parts. The first thing is the coach registers the school teams online through MTSO. That's a Google form. Register as early as you can. So even if you're holding off because you don't know how to pay, we can accept payment after registration, but it helps us start to plan how many teams there are going to be and what physical spaces we're going to need by registering early. So please make sure to register early. You can actually pay online with a credit card, or you can request an invoice, and all of that information is on our website. Then, and it's open now, you have to do a second registration on the scoring software. So this one's called Olympiad, and again, it's linked on our website. So first you register with us, and then you register the team and all of the members in Olympiad. That one is incredibly important because you literally type in what students are taking which events. You might not know that right now. That's okay. If you can get us that by like December, that'd be great. January at the latest, because we have to book rooms. And if we find out um, Codebusters has 20 teams or 30 teams that are registering, then because there's 3 students for Codebusters, we have to figure out a space to fit everyone. So Olympiad is important for a few reasons. One is space ahead of the tournament. And then no matter how many times we tell students this, and I'm sure you've done it in your classroom, they tend to forget to put their name on the paper. And so sometimes they'll put their names, but not their team. Other times they'll put their team and not their name. And so we've got to track down, okay, all they put was Hardin, but I happen to know that Hardin's bringing 2 schools. Which Hardin team is this? And so Olympiad, if you put every name of your students in every event, we can track down if they forget to do that, which it's a stressful day if it's their first year and they forget little things like that. We understand. So we try to build in like safeguards that we can track students down if we need to. They will have a wristband, and on the wristband, it says their team number. So theoretically, they have it literally next to them while they're writing their thing. It should be on their wristband. But again, in the moment, it gets stressful and they forget that it's literally on their body. So yeah, if they can remember, that's great, but Olympiad is our backup. Each student participant will sign a code of conduct form before they compete. We did it through DocuSign last year and it seemed to work really well. Coaches get an immediate email once the student has signed, the student and the parent have signed the code of conduct, so you can track it. And then if you have not already signed up, the Montana Coaches newsletter is great. We send it out once a month in the fall. And then about 6 weeks out, we start sending it more often, almost like every week, I think. So it's a great place to stay up to date and to learn more in the moment. So I'll pause again for any questions. Thank you, Susie, for keeping all of those links coming.
I will mention too, we have, whether you're new or not, we have a new look for our website and things are in slightly different places than they would have been before. I think many of you are new coaches, so that won't matter. But in the screenshot that you can see there on Jeannie's slide, that's the homepage. And on the bottom, the third one over, a little picture says schools, teams, and coaches, or schools, coaches, and teams. That's where a lot of the links that we're talking about will be found, how to register, how to pay, those kind of things.
Great. Thank you, Susie. Okay, so we have these event logistics updates and just like clarifications. So again, we have 2 types of teams, varsity and junior varsity at both Division B and Division C. So for the awards, varsity will earn medals for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place, ribbons for 4th and 5th place, and then junior varsity will get certificates for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place. We're going to try a new schedule this year with our space here on MSU campus kind of shrinking because we keep growing as a campus and we have more and more undergraduates, which means we have more classrooms blocked. We need to like re-envision what our schedule looks like. So there's going to be 5 testing blocks this year. We're going to start the tests at a little early. Basically, we took the opening ceremony time. We're going to take away the opening ceremony and we're going to go straight into testing. So if you're a new coach, this won't impact you. It's the same overall start time. It's just rather than having an opening ceremony, we're going to get started straight away with the testing instead. That way we can have a 5th testing block so that if we have smaller spaces, we can just divide all the teams out over 5 test blocks instead of 4. And then this year, JV and varsity are set up in Olympiad as 2 different tournaments. So what that means for you is that you're going to have to register in 2 tournaments if you have a JV and a varsity. If you have JV and varsity at Division B and Division C, I'm so sorry, you're going to have to register 4 tournaments. It's just that the Olympiad software doesn't handle JV varsity well. And we tried doing it in tracks last year, and it's a free software. We're super grateful for it. But the best way for them to handle our unique situation is we created totally different tournaments. You can only have one varsity team, so that means in the tournament itself, you're limited to entering just one varsity team, but then you can head over to the JV tournament and you can do up to 2 teams in the JV tournament. So it's the same number that we've had in the past. It's just now in the software, they're going to be in 2 different places. So I apologize on that one. I know it's going to be a little bit more work on your end, but it'll be much, much clearer in the end. Right? Couple more logistics check-ins. So the Strand Union Building, which is like the main gathering area, that's where Ballroom A is at, that we'll be having most people in. They've renovated that front drop-off area. So if you've been to campus recently, you might have heard we have a Chick-fil-A on campus now in the sub. And part of everything that's going on, there's a big renovation. So parking is going to be different this year. We don't 100% know what it's like. We have talked to parking services. They're aware of our date. They know that what's going to happen. But one of the big things is when you register, please try your best to estimate, like, are you going to take a bus? Are you going to take a van? Are you going to be traveling with 3 cars? It just helps us when we communicate with parking services what to expect. And then as they tell us more information, we will pass it on through that coach's corner. So we really can't emphasize it enough. It's good for you to be on that coach's corner newsletter so you can hear it as soon as we find out what that information will be. Great. We will provide a round of updates regarding floor surfaces, room dimensions for the build events. We don't have too many build events that require that information this year, but we will let you know once we've finalized things. And we're pretty close, so that's really exciting. But I'll pause one more time, I think, for questions. Okay, so registration is open. Super exciting. The registration is different for Division B and Division C. So make sure that you're registering for the correct division, middle school Division B, high school Division C. All of that is on our website. Like I said, as soon as possible, that would be great. One of the things that we really try to emphasize is making sure that if you have any students with accessibility needs, we're meeting those needs. So if there is if there's anything that we can do to help support your students or yourself, let us know. There's a question on that in the registration. If you need a particular help on like payment, invoicing, things like that, all of that can be answered in the registration form. So fill out that registration form as soon as you can. That would be great because it helps us to begin planning how best to help you and your students. Awesome. Okay, here's our official question slide, including with the Coach's Corner newsletter sign up. We do have a new coach office hour in 2 weeks, or maybe 3 weeks, on Thursday, October 23rd. So if you are a new coach and you just aren't quite ready to ask any questions right now, but you might have them in a couple weeks, you can feel free to pop in then. I'll pause for questions again. Okay, no questions. We're going to be moving into some tips for succeeding at Science Olympiad. If you are a returning coach and you've heard these before and you want to hop off, we will not be offended. That's totally fine. But I will hand it over to Susie to talk through some of these tips.
Okay, well, thanks everybody. We did not have Science Olympiad at my school, so I learned when I came to MSU. And I think the analogy that helped me the most is that people described it like track and field meet. So, you might have one kid who specializes in the pole vault and another who's a long distance runner. And maybe one kid does 4 events and one kid just does one event. But it's kind of your role as a coach to figure out, okay, yeah, this kid is going to run the 800 and this kid is going to be my long jumper. So that's kind of how I learned to think about Science Olympiad with all these different events and kids that specialize in certain areas. So these next couple slides just have some tips, mainly culled from past coaches who wanted to share them with you. The fact that you're here right now means that you're already thinking about Science Olympiad. I mean, it'll be here before we know it. So these are just a few tips for organizing and recruiting your students. The thing that I think is really cool is that you can recruit from all throughout your school. I mean, if you're a science teacher and you're around science kids, that's great. But a lot of schools bring kids from all across the school. There are a lot of competitions that have creative writing or thinking and other types of skills that really go far beyond just science. If you have a lot of students, we've heard of coaches who have so much interest that they actually have to cut people, which I guess is a good problem to have, but also a little bit sad. You can bring a couple of teams and you can fill out that 15-person team and bring 2 alternates. So if that is your challenge, that you have so many kids who are interested, definitely there's some ways you can work around it. You can go to the next one here, Jeannie. Here's a couple other tips for coaches. Especially if you're new, I think you really want to think about why you're doing this. We have teams that have done this for decades and they are planning all year round. They're coming with the goal of winning that team trophy. And then we have some teams that come with 4 kids and they just do a couple of events, and that's totally great. You as a coach just want to figure out kind of how that works for you. So again, just like a track meet, you get points for how high you score, or really how you get low points for scoring high. And if you are going for that team trophy, those points all count toward the trophy. But you can still win a medal in any event. Even if you bring a team and they just enter a couple of events, they can still take home a gold medal for scoring well in that event. Here's the second to the last bullet. If it's your first time coaching, some of the events are a little more complicated than others, and I'm going to show you in just a moment what that rules manual looks like that we've been referring to. So if I were you, I would take a look, and if you're just going to do a handful of events, pick the ones that you feel most confident in, or the ones that are maybe a little bit simpler than some of the others. Or if you have a parent maybe who's super interested in meteorology, you might want to do that one and have the parent help out with that. We do have some events that run in middle school and high school. So if you're coaching 2 teams, I would say go ahead and pick those events because you're already going to have a leg up on that. You can go to the next one, Jeannie. Let's see. So some coaches have the luxury of doing Science Olympiad as part of a class. I think that's pretty rare. Most people end up doing it as an after school or extracurricular. Coaches always advise just having regular team meetings and practices, having a regular time when your team can come together and make those meetings fun. Yeah, include food. I guess that goes for all events for students, right? And then one coach suggested having a timesheet for accountability. There's a lot, it can seem a really long way off when the students are preparing, and it can seem like, oh, I'll just wait until January. But if they start now and they log however many hours or whatever you suggest starting now, they're just going to be way more prepared when the time comes. All right, next one, Jeannie. These are some other tips for practicing the secondary skills like time management. So an event, I keep saying meteorology, but it's kind of a classic example. So it's basically a 50-minute test. We try to make those tests longer than somebody can complete in 50 minutes because we don't want everybody to get all the answers right. It'd be hard to know who's the first place winner. So you want to help your students think about how will they manage their time. And remember, they're often competing with a partner. So how are you going to divide up these questions? What if you have a conflict? Thinking about who is the leader. What if somebody can't make it on tournament day? I like this one about speaking your mind. Some kids who've not done that kind of work with a partner might not feel like they can say something. And then following instructions, as you'll see in a moment when we look at the rules, is very important. There's a lot of little details in there. And coaches have said doing other kinds of problem solvings like puzzles, escape room games, looking at graphs and charts can help them kind of hone those detail-oriented skills. Here's just a couple more of how to get help. We can help you for sure. We have a Science Olympiad club here at MSU. They're all alumni of high school and middle school programs. We could hook you up with one of those. You can find as many helpers as you want from your community. A lot of teams have parents who come in and help with a certain event. If you need support from your school administrator, we do have a letter posted on our website that kind of explains what Science Olympiad is. And Jeannie or I would be happy to call your school administrators too. There is a fee to participate, and of course, there's travel funding. So you might want to think about what that fundraising plan would be to get your team here. Some schools do pay their coach a stipend, kind of like if you coached football. So you might want to check into that and see if hopefully they will pay you for being a coach. That'd be awesome. I think after this is when we're going to look at the rules. So you basically download the rules manuals from the National Science Olympiad website. As Jeannie mentioned several times, we are a state tournament and we don't do all the events that are in that book. But when you look at the book, there are sometimes special qualifications for a state tournament versus a regional tournament versus a national tournament. We're a state tournament. You're going to want to have your students really look at how the events are scored, whether there are any penalties. For instance, if the helicopter we talked about weighs more than the set amount, they would get a penalty. Students can bring certain items and sometimes have to bring certain items like safety goggles. So you want to make sure they know that. And then I thought this was really interesting for a lot of the knowledge tests. What goes into the preparation is actually making a binder or a sheet of materials that you can bring to the competition. So it's like an open book test. So part of the fun of preparing is making that binder. What is everything I might want to know about chem lab or about botany, and building that binder that you can bring with you on the day of the tournament. So that said, some of the questions they're going to find are things that won't be in your binder, but you might have the resources to help solve them. And some of the competitions let you bring one sheet front and back. Some allow you to bring a whole binder. Some will even allow you to bring a field guide or something like that. Jeannie, are we now going to look at what the rules manual looks like? I can't remember what the next one is. Oh, impound. I wanted to mention what this is, and then we'll look at the rules manual. So for events where students build something ahead of time, like say there's a wheeled vehicle competition, often we have what's called impound, and that means even if you're competing at 10:30 a.m., you still have to bring your car at 8 a.m. because everybody brings their cars and they basically get locked up with the judges, because otherwise there'd be an unfair advantage for somebody who can sit there all morning and watch everybody's car and how it does, and they can fiddle with their own and make it better. This evens the playing field. So if you see an event that has an impound, that's what that means. Okay, here we are. This is what the rules manuals look like. I know some of you have seen these before, but if you're brand new, this was definitely new to me. This is an event called Crime Busters. It's a middle school event that we run every year. And you can see, actually, Jeannie, if you go to the next slide, it shows you how many students can compete. In this case, it's 2, although it can be 1. You just have an advantage if there's 2. What do we have next slide, Jeannie? This tells you if you need to bring any safety devices. In this case, you have to bring some safety goggles, and there's an appendix in that book that tells you exactly what that means. What's the next slide, Jeannie? This is where it tells you what you can bring. So for Crime Busters, you can only bring 1 sheet of paper, and you better believe these kids can write really small because you can put as many things as you might need to know on that 1 sheet of paper. As I mentioned, in other cases, they can bring an entire binder. Do we have one more on this, Jeannie? One more on safety, because this one's in a lab. Students do need to have hair tied back, and it will tell you. But I think the important thing just to know here is that reading these rules and understanding everything that goes into it, it's actually part of the preparation. And the students, they really have to study those. They will see, okay, this is what I have to bring. This is what I have to know. These are the tools I can have or can't have. Okay, I think this is our last slide, and these are just a couple of quotes from coaches. Again, if you're brand new and you're just bringing a few kids or doing a few events, you don't have to do everything. You can just do a couple. There's so many fun things, just going to the museum, walking around campus, going to the talks and tours, and maybe just try out a couple competitions and just enjoy the experience. It's really fun. There's kids everywhere. You get to meet a lot of college kids. You get to go into labs and cool classrooms at MSU. So if it seems overwhelming, just take it small, and you can always grow each year as you get more accustomed to it. Okay, I think that's it. Jeannie, is that right? Oh, no, sorry, one more. That we mentioned the STEM night at the Museum of the Rockies. It's really cool. Come the night before if you can. Lots of construction at MSU. We do have events all around campus. So just like a college kid, your kids are going to be walking from building to building. We do post those ahead of time and we have some signs, but it is an experience. If your kids have not been on a college campus before and wandering around, I'm trying to find 412 in Reed Hall. It can be tough, but that's part of the preparation. And then again, just thinking about your materials and what you need to bring with you. Okay, that was it. That's all the tips.
Awesome. Thanks, Susie. So if you have any questions, we can answer a couple of questions quickly. As a reminder, we will be here again in 3 weeks for a new coach office hours if you'd rather study up a little bit and then ask them then.
And we have recorded this. We'll post it on the website and we'll include all those links too that I've been putting over in the chat to all the different places.
Great. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, I hope to
Awesome.
see you in February or
Yeah,
earlier online.
perfect. Okay, Susie, I think we're good.
All right. Thanks, everybody.